I have to start this off by stating I am not a fan of whatever the fuck Andy Warhol, Nico, or the Velvet Underground did. I don't get it. It's art 110%, but art is subjective, and this subject ain't feeling it. It's just so New York. It's so elitist to a certain degree. I think the average person in the middle took a look at that whole scene and just kind of shrugged their shoulders. So whenever Lou Reed is brought up in a discussion of musical importance, sure, I'll give you his album Transformer. And if you want to get technical about it, Lou Reed is a one-hit wonder. But even Bowie, I felt, related to the common man more than that whole white light, white heat thing going on in the late 60s, man. I don't know. Lou Reed to me is not a figure of relevance in my lexicon of musical appreciation, and honestly, neither is Bowie. It seemed like at that time in musical history, a lot of personalities were pushed in the stead of actual musical exploration and musical risk-taking in unique ways. Persona came first, music came second. Now y'all better leave my Peter Gabriel alone.
All your hearts now seem so far from me.
Yes, Peter Gabriel could very well be shoehorned into that whole New York vibe of Andy Warhol sycophants, but Gabriel had the goods that transcended some elitist hipster vibe that was very specific to a certain time and a certain place, and I think that's why Pete has never truly been associated with this cast of characters. Oh, and by the way, I know you're dead now, so this doesn't really matter, but way to fuck up a perfectly good Peter Gabriel song, Lou.
Climbing up on Salisbury Hill, I could see the city light.
Yes, it would appear as though Lou Reed is not opposed to collaborating with other artists at all and has done so several times in the past. But Metallica? In 2011? Metallica had just barely reingratiated themselves into their own fan base after 2008's comeback Death Magnetic. So why in the hell would they work with hipster supreme Lou Reed on a collaboration album, given the beatings they took after the mid-90s and early 2000s output?
You know, any type of situation where you can just do something different and kind of put yourself in a different place for inspiration, you know, where you're not in familiar surroundings is always great. So we thirst for those type of opportunities. So we were kind of salivating to just get going in this. And
so what? They were just bored and lusted after some adventure or something? Man, it must really suck to be so successful that it gets boring, so you keep finding unique ways to dismantle your career. Anyway, a million videos have been made on this topic, but after listening to the album myself, I had some strong opinions on it, so here I am tossing my hat into the ring. This is my take on the whole Metallica Lou Reed Lulu album. This is Dancing with Ghosts.
Oh, throw it away for worship someone who actively despises you. I am the root. I am the progress.
No. So that little gem was just a tiny piece of this auditory assault known as Lulu. Apparently, Lou Reed had already been semi-acquainted with the guys in Metallica when playing 1999's Rock and Roll Hall of Fame 25th anniversary ceremony. He was at this ceremony where Lou said in passing, "Let's make a record, man." Now, unlike most drunk or high bozos in your neck of the woods who say shit like that all the time and then the next day forget all about it, Lou Reed and Metallica were both deadly serious. Now, I've read several books about not only Metallica, but Dave Mustaine and his early years in the band, and in no place in those books does it mention anything about anyone in the band giving a flying fuck about Lou Reed as an inspirational figure or otherwise. They were all into like Diamond Head and Motorhead and all the other headbands. Lou just had that kind of clout, apparently. He was an old guard of art rock, and he was also another way for Metallica to piss off their fans. They really like doing that, by the way.
And the fact that it's sort of kind of pissed more straight, you know, square metal dudes off a little bit, I think is good to always fuck with the perceptions a little bit.
The band recorded the album at Metallica's HQ recording studio / warehouse in May of 2011 and completed the record in June of 2011. That's right, this album took a mere month to complete. For those of you unaware, that is a freakishly short amount of time to complete an entire record. And though this album may only be 10 songs, it has a runtime of 87 minutes, with the last song, Junior Dad, clocking in at a whopping 19 minutes 28 seconds, with half of it just being swirls of guitar noise. So I think it's fair to say that taking only a month to churn this out meant a lot of corner cutting and even more improvisation.
It just felt so natural and so effortless, and contrary to what a lot of people are sort of saying around, this is such an odd collaboration. To us, it just felt completely, I couldn't think of anybody more, obvious for us to collaborate with.
Apparently, the idea for this album came from a compilation of songs Lou Reed was working on for a play called Lulu by German playwright Frank Wedekind. I'm assuming James and Lars listened to these demos, thought they sucked, and just metallified them, because that's essentially what the music mostly sounds like on this album, which we will get to, don't you worry. Now, even though Lou Reed had apparently already put some work into this project, you sure could have fooled me with his rambling, nonsensical lyrics and atonal vocal delivery.
If I pump blood in the sunshine, and you wear a leather box with azaleas, and I pump more blood.
I'll just go out and say it. Lou Reed was the entire reason why this record sucks. There are actually some pretty interesting musical ideas on this record, but Lou's curmudgeonly ramblings over the top of all the instrumentals just completely ruins it. Let's start with the opening lines to the first song on the album, called Brandenburg Gate. I would cut my legs and tits off when I think of Boris Karloff and Kinski. In the dark moon, it made me dream of Nosferatu, trapped on the Isle of Dr. Moreau. Oh, wouldn't it be lovely? And people thought Dennis Miller had dopey references.
I mean, when a neoconservative defenestrates, it's like Raskolnikov filibuster deoxymonohydroxynate.
I had to Google every single reference just in the first stanza, well, except for Nosferatu. I already knew who that was. Boris Karloff is an old-ass actor who is most notable for portraying the Frankenstein monster. Klaus Kinski is another actor who acted in a bunch of movies, many of them horror. The Island of Dr. Moreau is a book about a dude who got shipwrecked on the island of another dude named Dr. Moreau, who does all these weird experiments on animals and shit. But what the fuck does that have to do with cutting your legs and tits off? This is the exact kind of shit I would expect Lou Reed to write about, like, oh, look how well-read and worldly I am. Surely scholars in liberal arts colleges will be breaking down the importance of these lyrics for years to come. Okay, sorry. I'm done autistically hyper-focusing on the first few lines of the first song of this album, but you get the point. The entire thing is like this. Also, I think Lou Reed has some kind of trans stuff going on in his head, because he sure does talk about being a woman, wearing a dress, and even shaking his ass.
Waggle my ass like a dog prostitute coagulating hard.
Oh, I'm sorry, waggling his ass. Let's look up some other choice lyrics from these songs. Put a bloody gag to my teeth, I beg you to degrade me. Is there waste that I could eat? I am a secret lover, I am your little girl, please spit into my mouth. That was from the song Mistress Dread. You're more man than I, to be dead, to have no feeling, to be dry and spermless like a girl. I want so much to hurt you. Marry me. I want you as my wife. Spermless like a girl, more man than I. That was from the song called Frustration. Well, I would dare say I would be a little frustrated too if I were spermless like a girl. Actually, no, I don't want kids, so that would be fine with me. Anyway, these fucking lyrics, though. When you're able, the taste of your vulva, everything on it, the hair on your shoulders, the smell of your armpit. Ah, we got an armpit guy here. I can relate. I pointed out some of the sillier lyrics here, but honestly, for the most part, this album lyrically is just bad beat poetry in the vein of I'm 15 and this is deep. But since this isn't an anonymous teenager, but rather the highly lauded Louis Reed, we're all supposed to fawn over how prolific these words must be. I feel like the people who are really into this type of shit are the same people who are like really into like contemporary art museums.
None of those words are being used to describe this banana duct taped to a wall. It's Maurizio Catalan's latest work of art. It's called The Comedian.
Not throwing shade, I just don't understand it. Did I mention the talk singing? This is kind of a Lou Reed staple. He's been doing this prose style beat poetry jive since the early 70s, and he ain't changing now. Metallica will be laying down this heavy-ass thrash riff, and Lou Reed is over here like, hey man, I want to suck out your sickle cell anemic heart while you fuck me in the ass with your milk jug banjo alarm clock. Like, no, dude, just no. The whole atonal crap doesn't work over most melodic music. That's how he fucked up that Peter Gabriel cover so royally. Now, of course, this being a Metallica record, and given the egos of James and Lars, James Hetfield's vocals had to be on this thing in some form. I feel like that was probably a mandate from the Metallica camp in hopes that this record might perform a little better. Like, if there's at least a tinge of Hetfield on the tracks, people might be fooled into thinking that it's a legit Metallica song. Vocally, though, this was at a time when James's singing voice kind of sounded like trash. If you saw Some Kind of Monster, you know what I mean.
Brand, tick, 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 tock. Brand, tick, 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 tock.
So the contributions that he ended up making just sounded oddly out of place in relationship to Lou Reed's atonal droning. Also, could you pick two polar opposite vocal tones? You got Mr. Luty hipster drone voice over here, and you got fucking Metallica over here! Like, seriously, whenever James chimes in, it's so out of place. But then again, this whole fucking album is out of place, so I guess it fits, right? The instrumentals on this record are actually the only highlight. It's pretty impressive that the boys were able to churn out some pretty decent music in just a month's time. A lot of the music on this album has a more alternative rock bend to it, though there are definitely some thrash metal moments as well. You almost kind of wish this was an actual Metallica record, but I think given the alt-rock experimental nature, James probably wouldn't have done it justice vocally. He kind of has one mode of singing, and that's really all you're going to get from him. When Lulu finally dropped, it received almost instant backlash from fans and critics alike. But despite all that, the boys in the band really enjoyed making this record. In fact, when Lou Reed presented the lyrics to the final song, Junior Dad, to the band, Kirk Hammett and James Hetfield ran off in tears because the words were apparently so moving. I have read the lyrics to this song. They are probably the more sane of the lyrics on this album and make the most sense, but Bring Me to Tears, they did not. I would say objectively, this record is infamously bad and makes Saint Anger look like Led Zeppelin 4. I remember the moment when Lulu came out, it almost felt like a troll and was definitely a big eye roll moment for me. Like, you guys have just firmly cemented yourselves as irrelevant at this point. But you see, Metallica are a legacy act, much like Lou Reed, so they really don't need to be relevant to still pull massive audiences and millions of music streams, so, fuck me at the end of the day, I guess. Lou Reed would go on to pass away just 2 years after making this record, and he was quoted as saying this was the best thing he did. Yikes. Well, whatever. Anyway, what did you think about this album? I know you didn't like it because, well, that's fucking impossible, but do you agree at least that there were some interesting musical points? Let me know in the comments below, and until next time, have a good rest of your night.